Hey everybody, so today I want to do a quick video on how to buff wood. Specifically I'm going to be buffing a bowl, but it really applies to any type of wood, it doesn't really matter. And tool-wise, it doesn't require a lot of tools, but there is a system that does make it a lot easier. You could buff by hand just by using a soft cloth and just rubbing it whatever your workpiece is a lot, but it does take a really long time. So instead I like to use a system by Beall. It's really a mandrel. You could mount this to any motor that's less than 1700 RPM. I like to mount it on the lathe. It makes one less tool that I have to have around. And it really consists of a couple of pieces. So the mounting piece, which is a mandrel here that goes into the lathe. You've got your buffing wheel. This is for outside. There's three different ones, three different basically types of wax are used. So you've got three different buffing wheels. As well as, this is a new addition, I didn't used to have these, but this is for buffing the inside of a bowl, because it's kind of dangerous to buff with these big wheels on smaller pieces that aren't kind of heavily dished. So that's really all you need to do it, and I'm going to quickly mount this on the lathe and then show you how I buff stuff using the Beall Buffing system. Okay, so change camera angles here. So first off, we're going to start by mounting the mandrel, as well as this is a threaded adapter, which allows you to put the buffing wheels right on here. So I like to put this in here, and I find you have to get it in really tight or otherwise it comes out. So I like to just give it a quick tap with a hammer. It does make it a little difficult to get out, but if you're doing a few pieces, it's kind of nice because you don't have to reposition it every time you turn it on or off. So from there, I've got the Tripoli wheel here. This is like this deep red wax here that really cuts in and gets out even small scratches and really sets your first layer down. So from here, I just screw this in and get it nice and tight. I find it tends to back off when I'm using them on the lathe. When I used to use it on the separate motor, it never really did that, but for some reason the setup here with the lathe tends to back itself off if you use it a bunch. Okay, so first thing you want to do, if you have a variable speed lathe with forward and reverse, make sure you put it in forward so it's spinning towards you, otherwise it's going to back off really quick. I also like to start it off at the lowest RPM, like something like, in this case with the belt configuration, I have about 600 RPM, just until I get it going. I find if I get it too fast, this tends to wobble quite a bit. It could just be that this mandrel's kind of out of alignment, but regardless, it doesn't really change anything. The other thing, especially when working with the Tripoli wax, use a mask. It's really abrasive and it's actually quite bad for you. So I'm just going to put a mask on. Okay, so first things first, we're just going to turn this on. We're going to put a light layer of the wax right onto the wheel here. I'm going to turn it up a bit. Okay, so now that we have the wax put on here, got our bowl, I'm actually going to put a link to another video that I'm going to put up about the same time on how to finish with tung oil. So that's what this is going to be, and this is just a finishing stage after this is dry. So you want to start, and I tend to kind of pick a point. So I'm going to pick, let's see, this knot right here. Just so I know as I go around. It's pretty noticeable, but sometimes it can be a little difficult to see where you've done and where you haven't. And I'm just going to push it in and go like this. Here, I'll show you. Okay, so that's the first one there. You probably can't see it, but it's quite a bit smoother. So I'm just going to turn this up a bit. I'm at about 1100 RPMs. And another note when you're doing this, make sure you have it held with both hands. Have it really secure. You don't want it flying down because it's going to break it or it could hurt you. So really make sure that you have a good solid grip on it. And when you lift it up, bring it away from the bowl so it doesn't get caught. So now I've got the back here done as well as most of the sides, but the lip here is still a little bit coarse. So I'm going to turn it back on and I'm just going to run it around kind of in this direction here, opposite to the wheel, and this will help buff up the edge really nicely. Okay, so I've gone around a few times now and it's nice and smooth on the first layer, but I still have this edge to get. Now, I could use this internal wheel, but I find it doesn't do as good of a job. It tends to put a kind of it's a softer sheen. It doesn't work as well as this big wheel here. So I'm actually going to use the big wheel and just gently put it in on the side here and turn it. Make sure you don't turn while you're pushing it against here, because it could rip out of your hands, and we don't want to do that. Okay, so now we got to switch this out. I like to do it in stages with one wax at a time, partly because I hate wearing this mask, so I like to get it off as soon as possible. So we're going to do this here, get that nice tight, and this tends to have to run a little faster than the other wheel in order to get a decent finish. So I like to put it up to about 1400 RPM, if possible. Okay, so now that we've got this mounted on here, I like to put a little bit of wax on it. Okay, don't need a lot. This is pretty well impregnated with wax. And so from here, I'm going to actually bring it and I'm going to use this side of the wheel on the outside here and pull it in and then turn it a little bit. This one has less of a risk of catching and pulling it away, but you do have to press kind of hard in order to get it to actually work. Okay, so now I've got the outside done, right down to the curve in here, but I still have this flat bit that isn't really polished. This is the hardest part with this type of wheel. I tend to just use the end here gently and just buff it the best I can. This isn't the best tool for something like this. Unfortunately, I found buffing the inside of these is really difficult, and this is just kind of the easiest way to, when you're doing a few bowls in a row especially. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next step here. Take this mask off so you can hear me better. So this is the white diamond wheel. This is going to start to actually remove the red Tripoli wax here, and it's going to start to put a nice sheen on it. Now you could, at this point, stop with this wheel. Once you get this Tripoli wax removed and put the white diamond wax on, you could stop there. And some people like to do that, especially on things like salad bowls or kind of utility pieces, because it doesn't wear down as quick. The next step after this, which is Carnauba wax, tends to be water damaged. So sometimes it's best to stop with this and stick with the kind of semi-gloss sheen that this one leaves. Okay, so white diamond wax here. This is the white bar, and match it up with the number 2, or this one in this case says W diamond, white diamond, right on it. I like to put a little bit extra on there, and then we get to work doing the exact same thing. I'm going to line it up with this knot here, just so we can actually see, kind of have a start and end point. Okay, so same thing applies here. We've got the bottom and the side right up to about here done. Now I'm just going to put some more wax on here, and I'm going to start to do the edge right towards the edge here. Okay, so we're in the final stages here. You'll notice that this wheel looks a little different. It's kind of torn up, and that's because it's a different cloth than these ones are. This is kind of a heavier duty cloth, and then they get progressively finer as you go down towards the final stage. And this is using Carnauba wax, and this is basically just an end layer that gives it kind of that high gloss sheen. It's not particularly durable, even though Carnauba is a really hard wax. But it does give a really nice finish in the end. Okay, so same thing goes with this. A little bit of wax. You'll know, I find you know that you have wax kind of on there when you can start to smell it. Carnauba has kind of a sweet scent to it. I find when you get about halfway through, it's best to put a little bit more wax on for a bowl this size. This is about maybe an 8 or a 9-inch wide bowl. Now in larger bowls, you can actually use these wheels on the inside, especially if they're like a really flat dish shape, like kind of like a 16 or 20-inch wide bowl. My other lathe, which I have back in British Columbia, is large enough that I can turn up to like a 30-inch bowl or so. And that one, I found if I'm using this on an outboard motor, like say a 1 horsepower external motor, I can actually buff quite large bowls with this wheel. It makes it a lot faster, gives it a nicer finish than these little wheels do. So if you are doing larger bowls, you may want to consider that. Okay, everybody, so that is basically it for finishing. Once you're done, you'll notice that the bowl will go from, or any piece of wood for that matter that you buff, will go from kind of a dull sheen, especially if you're using like a tung oil, which requires several layers and then a buffing after. It'll go from a dull sheen to actually quite a nice kind of semi-gloss, and if you work at this enough and maybe do this a second time, like go back down to white diamond, do that kind of process again, you can actually get this up to even kind of a really high gloss. Now, this isn't the most durable finish, but I tend to like it. It's a nice feeling finish. It's really pleasing to the hand, and it really gives the bowls a nice look. So that's really everything to buffing a bowl with the Beall Buffing system. I'll put a link down below to where you can get it. I got mine from Lee Valley, which is a great company. If you don't know about it, they're well worth checking out. They have amazing products and lots of really knowledgeable staff. So if you're looking for something like this, check it out down there. It's a little on the pricey side, but I've had my buffing wheels here for close to 10 years. Well, yeah, probably close to 10 years, maybe even 12 years. And I just got these about 6 months ago. These aren't holding up as well, but I kind of expected that just because they're so much smaller. They don't have quite as much fabric on them. But these are almost 10 years old now, these wheels, and they work perfectly fine. I'm still on my original bars of wax, or this one I actually lost, so I had to buy a new one, but I'm still on my original bar of Tripoli wax. It doesn't use them a lot. I've buffed hundreds of bulls, and it's a really, really good system to use. This is a brand new channel. I've done quite a bit of photography videos in the past, but wood turning has been something I've been doing a long time, and I've really wanted to put some videos up on how to do this, because I've noticed there isn't a ton of wood turning videos out there, and it's really not a difficult thing to do, but it's tons of fun. It's a great hobby, and it's, some would argue, not too expensive. You can get an inexpensive lathe and some parts and get going on it. So if you like what you see, maybe leave some comments. Tell me what you want to know in the future. If you want me to do like on how to turn a bowl, or how to green turning, or something like that, let me know and I can see if I can make a video about it. Anyways, thanks a lot, everybody. Bye.